and meet a lot of people and interview them from around the world. So for me, it's cool.
I'm sure, like me, a lot of cricket fans around the world missed that 2019 England team in the recently held Cricket World Cup. And there are a lot of reasons behind missing them. I'm sure, like me, a lot of people around the world wanted to know where Jason Roy and Jofra Archer are right now. And are they going to play in the white ball formats again, or is just everything over for them? Are we going to see Jofra Archer in the upcoming T20 World Cup or not? And why not Brendon McCullum is coaching ODI squad of England, his baseball team? Well, enough of questions. And to answer them, I have a serious cricket journalist on the show today, Toby Reynolds. He's a podcaster, university newspaper, The Sports Gazette cricket editor, and total cricket nerd. He's here with me to discuss everything from Rohit Sharma to Ben Stokes, 5-day test matches versus 4-day test matches, pink ball or red ball, and a lot of other things. We are going to discuss everything today. So what do you have to do right now? Just show some love to this episode and glue yourself with this crazy stuff. Yeah. Well, you're in podcast as well. Tell me something about that first.
I'd love to know.
So I've got two podcasts at the moment. So one's called the One Short Cricket Podcast. So it's me and a couple other guys from the Sports Gazette do. Michael being one of them. And the other one I do is called Pitchside with Toby Reynolds, where it's just me and I interview different guests each week, basically, each with like a specialist topic. And so done some on cricket, some on rugby, some on tennis, a bit of everything really.
So all sports, right? Not only
All
just
sports
cricket.
now, yeah. The Sport Gazette, yeah. It's just a
It's just a university paper or something else, like university, right?
Oh yeah, university one. Yeah, exactly. For St Mary's. But yeah, it's basically gonna go to press conferences and stuff if we get accreditation and things, which has been good fun. Been to Brentford's Premier League press conferences a couple times, which has been good laugh.
Sure.
But yeah, well, this podcast then is this just different people all cricket or?
No, it's all cricket, right? Just cricket.
cricket.
There's some focusing on the cricket games only, right? Because in India, honestly, if you see, yes, a lot of people are actually focusing on Olympic sports as well. But at the same point of a time, they're actually into a lot of cricket. Just go with the demands. What's wrong in it? So let's start the session, man, because I have a lot of questions for England cricket, specifically for the domestic roots. So what about the county structure, man? I just love to know the county structure of England first.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a convoluted one in England at the moment. There's 4 competitions are the main ones. So the Red Bull one, you've got the county championship, obviously well known around the world. There's at the moment 2 tiers to it. So top division 1 has 10 teams, division 2 has 8. And yes, the 18 counties compete through that. There's promotion, 2 teams, I think, each season, go up and down. And yeah, it's a bit of a mix. Surrey have been the dominant side over the past few years. They've won 3 of the last 5 county championships and have a really good sort of core of young guys who have been coming through. A lot who are playing for England now. I mean, Ollie Pope been the star there, really.
Yeah.
Gus Atkinson's been debuting over the last year. Will Jacks. And yes, but they've got a great core of young guys alongside a few sort of world-renowned players. I mean, Hashim Amla was there for a few years. Sangakkara. At the moment, it's Kemar Roach has been the main guy who's taken loads of wickets. And then so that's the county championship. But then you also have the One Day Cup, which is sort of kind of put on the side at the moment. So it's the same 18 teams play. They have a North and a South group, and it's the same for T20 as well. So it's a sort of almost a B-tier competition because it takes place at the same time as the 100, which sort of started in 2021 and is now the biggest sort of competition in England. Just 8 teams. It's franchise league, kind of trying to mirror the IPL and the Big Bash. And
what is all about the game? That 100-ball league.
Yeah, the 100's hugely divisive. It's crazy. I mean, some people love it. I love it. Some people hate it. Mainly sort of the older generation and the people who have been into cricket for a lot longer because they think it's sort of trying to change the game too much. But yeah, I think I really like it. It was sort of set up originally to try and grow the game with the younger generation, who sort of maybe Test cricket wasn't as appealing to, or some of the longer format. And I think it's worked hugely in that respect. I mean, the women's game in particular, it's really, really helped. And yes, there's eight teams, franchises, basically hosted at the 8 test venues in England. So you've got two in London, the Oval and Lords, Manchester, Leeds, Southampton, Cardiff, Birmingham and Nottingham. And yeah, so there's 8 teams. I think it's basically meant to be sort of an elite level league with more international players coming over to try and grow it in that way. And yeah, to try and encourage younger people to get into the game, which I think has really worked because it's been really, really good at getting families along. Like I've been to loads of 100 games, and it is just only families. It feels like, which I think is a great atmosphere in some ways. Whereas the county championship is basically just sort of 80-year-old white men who have been going to the county championship for 30, 40 years.
Yeah. I think, I mean, you remember you mentioned about Kumar Sangakkara, and I heard after retirement from Sri Lankan national team, he's making a lot of runs in the county cricket as well.
Yeah,
after
he made
doing everything.
so many.
Yeah, solid batter.
Yeah, completely. I mean, even when he came to Surrey, he was sort of somewhat past it, but still was the most dominant batter in the county for county championship for a couple of years. I think he was the top run scorer 2 years in a row. Sort of when Surrey was sort of getting promoted back to Division 1.
He's an amazing batter. So Jos Buttler is something which I'm really curious to know, because he's not in the test team, right? And obviously you see there's a lot of huss around his captaincy. World Cup is coming as well, the T20 World Cup. So how you see him in future?
Yeah, I mean, I think he'll be the England white ball captain, so T20 and ODIs for at least a few years now. I mean, I can't imagine he'll be dropped before the Champions Trophy in 2 years' time, or 1 year time now, I guess, so 18 months. I think he'll almost certainly be in charge of England for the T20 World Cup this year and that next year. And they might assess from there, but I think he is by far England's best white ball player. He's been so good for over a decade now. I think he must have debuted around 2012. And yeah, just what he can do compared to like England's white ball side is unbelievable and has been unbelievable for a long time. But he was always just that little bit above everyone else. It always felt like
strong pillar. He's a strong pillar for sure.
Very much so, yeah. And I think he's a very good tactician as well, which always helps being captain. I think the problems that England had at the World Cup weren't Jos Buttler's fault by any means. I think there was a lot of issues around it. The fact that most of England's team hadn't played any ODI cricket for the last sort of few years, and particularly they hadn't played together. And I think there was a lot of confusion about the roles within the side, who was doing what. I mean, you look at Bazball at the England Test team at the moment. Everyone knows exactly what they're doing and how they're doing it. And it was the same under Owen Morgan before, when England won in 2019, as everyone knew exactly what was going on. Whereas I think with Jos Buttler, it was a bit more convoluted because it was all being put to the side. But yeah, I think I'd be very surprised if he loses the job in the next few years, partly as well because Rob Key, who's England's managing director at the moment, he is so focused on just trying to facilitate sort of the teams at the moment. You see it with sort of with Brendon McCullum and Ben Stokes. They're basically given free rein to play in any way they want and full confidence. And I think that's going to be exactly the same with Jos Buttler.
Do you see, because obviously we relate Brendon McCullum more with the white ball format, right? And so what do you think about if we see Brendon McCullum taking over the charge as a ODI cricket coach?
I don't think so.
Is it coming or not?
No, I can't imagine so. I think when McCullum sort of was signed to be the red ball coach, it was on the sort of he basically said on the condition of he will only do the red ball side. And I think the idea from Rob Key was to try and split it up a little bit, so that because being an England test coach is extremely demanding. I mean, England play at least 15 test matches every year, it seems, and it's getting nearer to 20 by the day. And I mean, that's a huge amount of cricket. That's what, over 100 days of cricket it could be if you're playing 5 days, plus all the training and the camps beforehand, the tours. I mean, England are in India for seven weeks, I think it is, at the moment. So that'll be unbelievable length of time, as well as doing all the white ball stuff. I think it makes a lot more sense to try and split it up. I think he would be an unbelievable white ball coach to have as well. And maybe in the future, when he stops being the test match coach, he might do the white ball stuff, or maybe for another country instead. But yeah, I think he would be an unbelievable coach. But I think I think they're going to try and keep
Yeah.
it separate where possible.
Well, I would love to see Brendon McCullum coaching and winning the trophies for England, especially in the white ball format, man. Obviously, yeah, yeah. So obviously, India versus England Test series is going on right now, and we saw that what happened in the first game, especially Tom Hartley 7 wickets haul, right? But I have a question for you. We have completed two cycles of the World Test Championship, and England were nowhere in the radar of the final sections. Like, what is the reason you think?
Yeah.
No,
I think it's been tough so far for England. I mean, they've had the Ashes was what the first round, and now India. It's going to be playing to the 10 Test matches against the best two sides in the world. Is always going to be tough. And I mean, to 2-2 draw against Australia isn't bad by any means. I mean, it was a very, very good series. India, on the other hand, I mean, we've only had the one Test match, and it'll be interesting to see how the rest of the series goes. But if England go on to lose the next four matches, they're obviously not going to be in a great position. But if they win, another one, another two, they're in a fairly strong position, I'd say, to go forward and make the World Test Championship final. They obviously could have had an opportunity to make it last cycle, so in 2023, but England got off to such a bad start, losing so many games early on that they never were really able to recover. Whereas this time out, they're almost starting from a position of strength with Brendon McCullum and Ben Stokes, and England's form being so good that I think they do have an opportunity to make it through. But yeah, I think you have to kind of wait and see. There's another sort of year and a half to see how England can keep up the form that they've had for the last 2 years.
I have a link up question with it because we saw two games, Test matches. The first one is Australia versus West Indies, and the other one is that one, India versus England. Both the games were really, really amazing. But the same point of time, if you see that both ended in just 4 days, it's a fact that ended in 4 days. So, are you in favor of 4-day Test matches in the future? Because if you see in the long run, it's a huge debate now. I mean, two things: not only the future of the 4-day game or 5-day game, but also about the future of bilateral ODI series as well. Like a lot of people say it's like a pointless right now. Why are you playing? Like, for example, if T20 World Cup is coming, why not just play only T20 games rather than playing three? Like if you see recently that Australia versus West Indies is going on right now, right? ODI one, and if you see that this is not going to help anyone, right? Because if you want a lot of T20 cricket to go for the T20 World Cup.
Yeah, so with the 4 days versus 5 days, I'm a big advocate for 5 days. I'd say, I just think it's sort of how Test cricket was created. You get more cricket with it as well, and you get. Sure. I think there's an opportunity for sort of better finishes. If you think about lots of the great finishes in Test matches, they will almost always be on day 5, just because you have 3 results in play. And I mean, if you have 4-day cricket, then I guess you still have 3 results in play just a day earlier. But yeah, I think it just allows maybe a little bit more. I understand from a sort of financial point of view, it can be a lot more strain on grounds and on the local teams to have to cater for an extra day. But I just think it allows an extra day. I think I don't see a problem personally with an extra day of Test cricket. And I mean, having that 5th day, you look at sort of Headingley in 2019 when Ben Stokes worked his magic. That was a day 5. Most of the Ashes this year, plus as well, rain's always an issue. You can maybe do 4 days with a 5th day as a spare. I mean, the other option that you could do is play 4 days cricket and extend the number of overs. Obviously, it's normally 90 overs in a day. The county championship, for example, they bowl 100 overs. So I mean, there'll be an option there to try and get another 40 overs, 50 overs in that way, trying to extend the day. And I think Jared Kimber, I think I'm right in saying, suggested you could, if they developed the pink ball to be much better, you could have 4 days play with 4 sessions of 30 overs, or 20 overs, or whatever it might be. And you'd therefore be able to play into the evening a bit more. So you could almost, you could then play 115 overs in a day's play, say. And I mean, that could be quite an interesting one, but yeah, the pink ball wouldn't be anywhere near good enough for that. But I personally would say 5 days, but I mean, there's an option for 4 days. I think you just, the only thing you gain from going 4 days is the fact that countries would lose less money. Whereas I think what you gain from staying at 5 days is the sort of the purest form of the sport and the best form of the sport. And and in theory, the best advertisement for the sport as well, because you're likely to have more cricket. But yeah, and then in the ODI stuff as well. I mean, yeah, I think it's going to get to a stage where ODI cricket does eventually only happen around the World Cup, because it's far less interesting in a lot of ways for many people than T20 cricket. And I mean, I think even T20 cricket internationally could eventually fade out as well and just happen around the time of the World Cups, which would be a shame a lot of the time to have no bilateral series. I love a little bilateral series between England and whoever else we might be playing. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if in 10 years' time, ODI cricket only happens for World Cups, and T20 cricket possibly similar as well.
Yeah. No, I mean, you mentioned about the session that a lot of people are planning to make a ping ball game, so that 115 over sessions in a whole day. So eventually, it turned out to be 4-day game, because if you play 115 overs per day, so definitely it will end it in 4 days, man. Right? A lot of chances are.
I think that would be the option, though, is if you do want to make it 4 days and condense it, the best option would be to try and make them play more overs in the day, because if you're playing 90 less overs, you're going to get so many less results. And I get that Test cricket is slowly getting to a stage where most tests are finishing on the 4th day, but you still want the option, I think, for a 5th day or for extra overs, whatever it might be, just to try and allow some unbelievable finishes that do occur.
I think day-night test is going to be future. Yeah. Day-night test is going to be future for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it'll help. It helps sort of try and get more people into the ground. I mean, the number of people, less so in England because it's normally during the summer and people are happy to take off time from work for a test match. But in lots of other countries, I mean, I think it happens a lot in Adelaide, in Australia, where they have the day and night and people turn up at sort of 4 p.m. ready for the sort of, they might miss the first session or whatever it might be, and you might be able to come along later and watch a sort of 2 sessions of cricket, which is still a great time for what can be a reasonable price in some places as well. And yeah, it would get more people through the door as well, which I think is very, very key in a lot of other places.
So let's jump to some other place as well, some other continent. I would say Australia. So Australia won the World Test Championship. Australia won the World Cup as well, and now the Test series which we saw against West Indies, the guy who actually came up with the highest Shema Joseph, right? How do you see him?
I don't know a huge amount about him, to be fair. I mean, most of what I've heard about him, he didn't play cricket. He wasn't playing professional cricket about a year ago, which is absolutely crazy. To think that a year into his sort of professional career, he goes and gets Steve Smith first ball, takes a 7th, I think it was, to win the Test for New Zealand, for West Indies, to draw them level, which is absolutely crazy. He's quick, I think, is the one thing you say. He seems to be very, very quick. He's been signed to the PSL, I think I'm right in saying, which will be a very nice little sort of financial boost for him. But yeah, he seems to be quick, skillful. I don't know a huge amount. I didn't see much of the Test match, unfortunately. But yeah, I think he could be a good future ahead for him, perhaps.
Sure. I think I loved watching him, because I remember before he made a debut in the international scene, so I saw a few games, because he played for Guyana in West Indies, and he's a quicker man. He's a Guyanese cookie. I mean, I'm pretty much sure. If you play good matches and if you won matches for your team, so suddenly you will get a lot of pump. And because of that pump, a lot of people actually have an eye on you, and which is somewhere good or somewhere bad, specifically for the fast bowlers. Because if you play a lot of matches, then definitely it's going to, in future it will affect you. I remember I was listening to Michael Holding, the West Indian legend. He said that if you really want to be a good fast bowler, play less cricket. So it's important, right? We have to save them. What do you think about like saving fast bowlers, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, that's sort of been a big thing over here in England, having sort of Mark Wood and Jofra Archer, obviously 2 of the fastest bowlers in the world.
Yeah.
Mark Wood has been rested and rotated really well and hasn't had that many big injuries of recent years. Jofra Archer, on the other hand, got bowled into the ground in New Zealand in 2021, was it 2020 maybe? And yeah, got bowled into the ground, got an elbow injury, and has since not really been able to play any cricket since then. And what was that, 2-3 years out the game he's had. And yeah, I think it kind of shows that bowlers do need to be rested. I think it's a well-known fact now. I mean, it's very unlikely you'd find any fast bowler bowling and playing in 4 or 5 test matches in a row.
Yeah.
I mean, the Aussies seem to do it well, but then Cummins, Stark, and Hazelwood almost exclusively only play test matches. So they'll play 10 games a year, 15 games a year, maybe a few ODIs or a few T20s, but generally they don't play that much cricket, and it shows because they're always fit. England, on the other hand, we have a lot of quick bowlers, it seems, at the moment. None particularly in the sort of the top tier, other than maybe Jimmy. And yeah, they sort of all rest and rotate, I guess, between them. But yeah, there's quite a few quick bowlers who are out injured for England. I mean, Josh Tongue is out injured. Ollie Stone's been very, very injury prone. Saqib Mahmood's not played a huge amount of cricket over the last few years either.
Chris Jordan, I remember. Chris Jordan was there.
He got quite a few injuries, I think, when he was younger as well. Reece Topley as well. Same thing, got injured in the World Cup. And yeah, they've just played too much cricket. It's the same in England in particular, really, is a lot of professionals will be playing best part of 50 games if you include all the T20s and the ODIs and the one-dayers. And yeah, they play a lot of cricket, and they do have to be very, very careful to try and not get injured. And I think it's getting a lot better, and it has been a lot better over the last few years because counties and countries understand the risks of it now.
Sure. Dude, I want to understand from you, because we saw 2019 as well when England won the World Cup, and we saw 2023 as well. Let's talk about 50 over, then we move to 20 over as well. What's the difference you saw? Because I remember when Ewan Morgan was captain at that point of the time, 2019. So we saw attacking cricket like we saw in the 23 as well. But we saw a bit of change, a bit of defensive approach as well from the England team. Do you think, because you remember that Ben Stokes took the retirement and he came back from the retirement just to play that 50 over World Cup? What's the difference you saw in both the teams, both the squads?
I mean, with Ben Stokes, I think a lot of people expected him to unretire. I mean, I definitely did. I thought there's very little chance he wouldn't come back if he was able to and if he asked to. But yeah, I think team-wise, the biggest thing for me was I think partly Owen Morgan, and I think Owen Morgan's sort of think tank around him. England was so clear and precise on what the roles were in 2019. Everyone knew exactly how they were going to play and what their job was and where they were batting and everything. The team had played together, best part of 100 times, I think it was, in the sort of 4 year cycle, 50, 60 times maybe, possibly more. And yeah, they played a ridiculous number of games together in the same positions, the same places. Everyone knew exactly what was going on. They knew that Jason Roy and Johnny Bairstow were going to be aggressive at the top of the order and try and take the attack down. Joe Root and Owen Morgan were sort of going to be in the middle. Ben Stokes a little bit, just going to nudge it around at 90, 100 strike rate. So not really nudge it around, but yeah, we're going to just bat time. And then the finishers, Jos Buttler was going to come in at the end and go ballistic. Mo and Ali a little bit as well. And yeah, they knew exactly how they were doing and what they were going to do. And the same with the bowling. I think Jofra Archer was a huge help. He just was that X factor with the ball that England were really missing from sort of up until he debuted in 2019. And yeah, I think when you look at 2023, it was almost the opposite. The England team, I think it was only the same exact 11 who played 3 times throughout the tournament. Which is absolutely mental that there was only 3 unchanged 11, sorry. And I think that kind of showed that England's plans were a lot more muddled. They didn't really know who was doing what. They played a lot of all-rounders at the beginning, then they played no all-rounders against South Africa. They were mixing and matching a lot. And I think Ben Stokes not being able to bowl maybe didn't help as well, because it meant they wanted an extra all-rounder in there. It's about in the top 6, which they didn't have. So Liam Livingstone and Mo and Ali batted at 6 and 7 for a bit, and then they realised it wasn't working, so they changed it around. And then what they changed to wasn't working with no all-rounders. And yeah, there was a lot more confusion, I think, around the squads. And yeah, in 2019, if someone got injured, whoever came in knew exactly what they were doing. Like Jason Roy got injured and James Vince just came directly in.
Yeah.
And he didn't score any runs. He didn't do that well, but he knew what he was doing, and everyone below him in the batting order knew how he was going to bat. Whereas this time around, because they were changing their team so often, they hadn't played together that often. I think they played together less than half the times throughout the sort of the 4-year cycle between 2019 and 2023 compared to 2015 and 2019. And yeah, because they just hadn't played together, no one really knew what they were doing and how they were going to go about it. I think they kind of just hoped and assumed that having 11 of the best ODI cricketers in the world would click, and it didn't quite work, unfortunately. In 2019, Jason Roy missed 2. He got injured and didn't play for 2 of the games, and England lost both those games. And I remember at the time, and I mean, a lot of the England fans, I'm sure, remember at the time thinking, "Oh my God, we're gonna bottle this. We're gonna lose this. We've been the best team in ODI cricket for the past 4 years, past 3 years." And yeah, they lost both games, and it meant they had to win every single game from there on out. So they played who would have been New Zealand, India, and then the semi-final and the final, I think it was. So they had to win 4 games on the bounce. And they managed it. They did it, and they won the whole World Cup, and it was absolutely crazy. But for a bit of time, England were worried because, yeah, Jason Roy wasn't there, and England looked like a much worse team instantly just because of the one change.
So T20 World Cup is coming. You're also a defending champion. England is defending champion as well. So one player who made an impact was Phil Salt, and I was wondering that why he couldn't make it to the IPL setup, because he is the best player and he bowls as well. Phil Salt, right? He's like a typical spin bowler who can also bowl.
Will Jacks bowls a bit of spin, so that would be his opening partner, possibly.
No, I think. Who do you think is going to be X factor for this T20 World Cup, upcoming T20 World Cup?
This is a tough one. I mean, Phil Salt for me wasn't necessarily in my 11 until that West Indies series, which is absolutely crazy to think about. It was between, I think, Johnny Bairstow, Jos Buttler will almost certainly open the batting if he wants to. He'll be captain. He can sort of do what he wants in theory. But yeah, I had Will Jacks opening alongside Jos Buttler, with Johnny Bairstow at 3. But yeah, Phil Salt opened the batting against West Indies and was unbelievable, absolutely brilliant. And I think he's played himself into the side. I mean, England will have a few more T20s before the World Cup, which I'm sure they'll try and figure out the lineup they want. But yeah, I think if Phil Salt sort of can get on fire, he is very, very destructive. He is very similar to Jason Roy and how Jason Roy was back in the day. And same with Jos Buttler. I think that would be a very dangerous partnership because Phil Salt can go from ball one. Jos Buttler can go from ball one as well. And so together, in theory, they could be scoring at sort of 200 strike rate for the first sort of 10, 20 overs of first 10 overs, the whole 20 overs in theory if they're in there, and really pile on the pressure. And I wouldn't be surprised if those two batted together for a whole T20, 250 would be easily scoreable for the England team, I think. And yeah, with Will Jacks as well. I mean, it's very much possible. And you saw how well they batted together in the West Indies.
The 2 World Cup happened, right? In 2021 as well and 2022 as well. T20 World Cup, right? And suddenly we are facing a lot of World Cup every single year. Batters never going to win you the tournament. It's the bowlers who are going to win the tournament. Who do you think is going to be the one bowler who can actually make a difference in the upcoming T20 World Cup or eventually in the white ball format first?
That's a really tough one. I mean, if Jofra Archer is fit, which I think the plan is, or the hope is that he'll be fit, I think he'll be absolutely crucial. He is such a skillful bowler, has pace.
Yeah.
He's probably how you design a T20 bowler if you could pick him. He's got slower balls, he's got knuckle balls. He can bowl 90, 95 mile an hour. And yeah, he's also just very good at hitting a length if he needs to as well. So if he's fit, will be unbelievably useful just because he can bowl 2 overs with the new ball if you want him to, and 2 overs at the death. I mean, Sam Curran was the player of the tournament in 2022 as well, and was absolutely crucial to England winning. He's a very, very good bowler. He was obviously a lot less effective in last year's ODI World Cup, but different formats. So you don't have to worry so much there. And he's also a very good death hitter, which could be useful to have him sort of down at number 7, number 8. Yeah, but I'd say Jofra Archer, if he's fit, will be very, very key. Reece Topley, I think, is always a very underrated bowler. He sort of goes under the radar, but he's really good with the new ball, and not a bad death bowler if you need him to. He can bowl through the middle overs. I think England have a lot of good options. It's just, yeah, as you say, whether it all works, whether it all clicks together. And I think having someone like Jos Buttler is very helpful in that way. And actually, I've completely forgotten about Adil Rashid, arguably one of the best leg spin bowlers in the world. I'd say he's been crucial to England's white ball setup for the past, since 2015 probably. And yeah, I think between those sort of four bowlers, that has the makings of a very, very, very good T20 attack. It's just whether it all comes together, I'd say.
And what's the status for Jofra Archer right now?
I think he's fit again. He was out in the West Indies when England were over there before Christmas, and he was bowling in the nets and seemed to be fully fit again. I think they want to try and ease him back in because he's had this recurring injury for the past couple of years now. And they don't want to risk him again because I think if he picks up the same injury, it'll be another couple of years, and England really don't want that. They want him fit. So I think he'll probably play a few white ball games over the coming sort of few months before the T20 World Cup. But I don't think he's due to play in the IPL because they don't want to risk him there and don't want him to get injured like he did last year, I think it was. And yeah, I think they really want to try and just as you said with Michael Holding quote, the best bowlers are the ones who don't bowl. Because they don't have a risk of getting injured. And I think, that would be the key for Jofra Archer is if he can stay fit. And actually, part of the reason he'll stay fit is if he can get some overs under his legs and if he can sort of bowl a few overs here and a few overs there and stay fit and get that sort of match fitness back up there. I think he has a better opportunity to sort of stay fit for longer and hopefully not get another injury. But yeah, I think he should be ready for the T20 World Cup, which is exciting.
Who is the as of now the top priority England all-rounder you see coming? Anyone in the county circuit or something?
That's a tough one. I think there's not a huge number at the moment, I'd say. I mean, Rian Ahmed, I guess you could argue. He sort of bats number 6 for Leicestershire and obviously bowls some very handy leg spin. I think he's basically being sort of groomed ready to become the new Adil Rashid. So that he's good to go when Rashid retires in a couple of years. Sam Curran and Tom Curran are both very, very good as well. Sam Curran's probably the number 1 England all-rounder right now, I'd say, in T20 cricket anyway. I think he's fantastic. Tom Curran has been out of the England setup for a few years, but has had a very, very good 2023, particularly with the bat, which is quite interesting. He sort of came in as a death bowling specialist who could bat a little bit. But I remember, I think I saw Tom Curran's debut in 2014, 2015 for Surrey. I was there at the Oval, I think. It might not have been his debut, but in his first season. And yeah, he was opening the batting for Surrey, aged 18, I think it was. Yeah. He's not that young anymore. I think he's 28. So he's in theory in his prime, and he had an unbelievable season last year with the bat. He basically won the 100 for the Oval Invincibles because him and Jimmy Neesham went and scored a stupid amount of runs between them. So I think there's a possibility he maybe comes back into the side. Moeen Ali as well, obviously. He's getting on a little bit, but he's still around, I think. Liam Livingston as well. T20, very, very good T20 cricketer. So I think England do have a lot of options. It's just whether they all come through. And I mean, you look at the World Cup last year and none of them really clicked, and that was a bit of a problem. But I guess they have to move on and try and see if they can find a bit of form for this year.
Sure. Do you see a lack of genuine all-rounders? Because we have right now Ben Stokes. In India, we have Hardik Pandya as well. But still, do you see there's a lack of genuine all-rounders?
I don't know if there's a lack of all-rounders. I think there's a lack of sort of top quality all-rounders. I mean, Jadeja, Hardik. Stokes doesn't even really bowl anymore because he's injured. In theory, you could go for someone like Ashwin and Axar, but they're sort of more bowlers who bat, I'd say. I think there's possibly because the game is so much more professional now that the players have to focus a bit more on one of the skills. I mean, Ben Stokes came into the England side as a bowling all-rounder, sort of batted at number 8, and bowling was the main sort of skill, and he sort of slowly started to bowl less and then became England's 14er and slowly started to bat more, and you saw how that sort of affected him as a player. He then went from being sort of a sort of averaging in the mid-30s to the last few years he's averaged over 40. That 2019 in particular, he was unbelievable in that Ashes series because he'd been almost been focusing more on his batting, you assume, and he'd been bowling much less. Mo Ali was the opposite. He came in as a batter, batting at number 6, and bowled a bit of off spin as sort of England's sort of 5th bowler. And he then focused a lot more on his off spin, got a lot better, and was a pretty handy off spinner by the end of it, but was struggling a lot more with the bat. So I think it's the skills aren't necessarily getting worse, but I think because cricket's becoming a much better sport and a much more professional sport, it's much easier to deal with it. But I think there's almost a lot more need for part-timers necessarily than all-rounders. I mean, England are filled with part-timers. I mean, India maybe less so, but I mean, I think, where was it? England at one point, possibly in the West Indies, had a team where all or 10 of the 11 players.
Well, Joe Root is taking a lot of 5 or 6 wickets in the innings,
Exactly,
so you can't say you have a part-time, you have a full-time bowler as a Joe Root.
Yeah, but I mean, I think again, that's possibly it, where he's not actually focused less on his batting, but he's just been bowling more and more and more, and he's gotten a lot better because of it. And I think he's a flawed bowler in a lot of ways, but in certain conditions and in certain matchups, he's very, very useful. He's very skillful in a lot of ways. And particularly against left-handers, his average, very similar to most off spinners, is fantastic.
I remember 2019, like you mentioned about the Ben Stokes, the prime, okay, and it was a game in Trentbridge, right? When Trentbridge or somewhere else, even Jack leads 16 balls, 1 run, and Ben Stokes alone.
And Headingley, that one was, that was crazy. Yeah.
Crazy. Yeah. Any memory?
That was prime Ben Stokes. I remember that well. I kind of stopped following the game because I thought England were going to lose. I remember I saw Stuart Broad get out, and we still needed 100. I think it was 105, something like that. And I'm thinking, we're not going to do it. England are not going to do this. Jack Leach's going to out. We're going to lose. We're going to lose the Ashes, and Australia are going to run away with it. And then I remember sort of kind of looking on BBC Sport and sort of following a bit. And then Ben Stokes went ballistic. I think in the car, we pulled over to the side of the road, and I just had to watch it on my phone. And there were 4 or 5 of us with my family, and we were all crammed around a phone trying to watch it and listening in on the radio at the same time. And it was unbelievable what was happening. And then England almost lost it with 1 run needed to draw it level. Jack Leach almost ran himself out.
That review. Remember review?
They burned a review the over before, I think it was, and then Nathan Lyon review burnt, and they missed the run out, and then Ben Stokes coming through the covers. Yeah.
It's fascinating, crazy game. I remember. So let's have a few questions right now, just 2 or 3 questions more. I want to understand the BBL and IPL, like your take on BBL and IPL, the schedule window specifically, because there's a lot of talk around specifically about the IPL. Let's be honest with you. So I want to talk about this. Like, what do you think about your take on BBL and IPL in the schedule window?
I mean, I don't think the BBL, is much of an issue. I mean, I don't think it's followed that well around the world. It's kind of been on the downhill for the last 10 years almost. I think BBL 5, BBL 6 was maybe its peak. I mean, I don't particularly follow it. I sort of look at the scorecards and that's sort of about it. The IPL, on the other hand, is the biggest cricketing event, definitely, maybe even the biggest sporting event in the world. I mean, the Football World Cup possibly tops it. But there's billions of viewers for the IPL, which is kind of shows how big a sport it is and how big an event it is. So I don't really have an issue that it's 2 months free. You kind of have to allow it because India is the biggest country, the biggest cricketing country in the world, and it's a great tournament. I don't watch a huge amount of it. I sort of catch it where I can, but it shows that it deserves its right to it commands the right to 2 months free because it's the biggest tournament in the world. It's got the best players in the world. the most money of any tournament in the world, and I don't think it's a bad problem. I don't think it's a problem having 2 months free from no Test match cricket. Yet again, it's not really when any other country plays Test cricket anyway. So I don't think there's an issue really there, and they can kind of do what they want because it is such a massive tournament that creates so much money for the BCCI.
Sure. And no, it's a fact, right? Because look, you're playing for 10 months continuously, and there's a 2 months when you can actually take a little bit of rest, play like a chill games, right? Because and you want that sort of a thing because career is so small for any cricketer or any athlete in the world. You also want some sort of a financial backup. What do you think about like how England is looking at the T10 or something? Like they are actually looking for something big.
I mean, yeah, the T10, what happens in Abu Dhabi, I think it is, or Dubai maybe.
Yeah, it's in the Middle East area.
Yeah, Middle East, exactly. And I think it's, yeah, again, it's just another franchise tournament. I don't think there's anything really different between that and the PSL and the Blast and the Caribbean.
You think 100 ball is coming?
I think 100 ball will just stay with the 100 itself as a tournament. I think it was kind of sort of brought around to be a bit revolutionary, but I don't think it'll ever catch on outside England. Partly because it's not catching on that much inside England as well. And yeah, I mean, I think it's a good idea, and the tournament itself works. The difference though between 100 and a T20 is literally 20 balls in each innings. There's a minimal change. That's the same kind of tactics. You maybe have to worry a bit less about rotating the strike or whatever it might be. I mean, you have to speak to some of the players who play it, but generally, I think from players I've spoken to about the 100, it's basically the same game. It's just a bit shorter. That's the only difference. And I think it'll probably just stay in the tournament itself.
But 6 months, 5 months, do you think that is going to expand in future? The leagues around the world?
I think most leagues will want to expand. I think it would be very hard to expand most of the leagues just because they don't really make any money other than the IPL. The IPL makes a huge amount of money, I think. Most other leagues are maybe slightly profitable or some lose money. Most are sort of about even. The 100 still yet to make a profit. And I think that's really going to be the focus, isn't it? It's sort of more on how can you generate the money and make it sustainable. Whereas I think you're less likely to be able to do that with bigger leagues. I mean, the IPL managed to expand to 10 teams recently because it's so big and so good. I don't think any other league really commands that ability.
Yeah. So before I wrap up, I have one last question for you. Bowler, if you see any top 5 bowler in the world, who you are going to pick? In the whole world and the... Yeah. Like, not only in England. Yeah, okay, let's make a top 5 all format player. If you see any all format player, yeah, who is going to be in your team?
I think
Bowler.
You've got to have Mitchell Starc in there. I think he's probably the best all format bowler, other than maybe Pat Cummins. So I think those two would definitely be in there.
Josh Hazelwood.
Hazelwood's not a bad option. I mean, I think those 3 Aussies, it's hard to split them. I think Hazelwood's a very good red ball bowler. His white ball stuff perhaps isn't quite as good. Jasprit Bumrah 100% gets in there. He's actually probably the best all format bowler. Jofra Archer maybe an option as well. Spin wise, I think it's quite hard because there aren't that many.
Ravi Ashwin
are probably the 2 best ones. But I don't think Ashwin's that great a T20 bowler in a lot of ways, and he doesn't really play many ODIs.
He's trying. I'll tell you, Toby, about the Ashwin right now. So Ashwin is a player. If you see, just give him the ball, and he's going to play all day long. So make him in 100 ball bowler. If 100 ball tournament will come, he's going to play in this as well.
I think he'd be a very good 100 ball bowler because he's really smart with the way he bowls. He knows exactly what he's doing. I think that's a very good skill to have in any format. I do think though he's not quite in that top tier in the T20. I mean, just for his test match ability, you might have him in the top 5 all format bowlers. I don't know if I'm missing anyone at the moment. Mark Wood, I guess, from England's probably their best all format bowler. I mean, Jofra Archer, if he's fit, 100% would be in there. But But yeah, do you have an unfit Jos Buttler, Jofra Archer in there? Probably not, I guess.
Sure.
West Indian wise, I don't think there's anyone really standing out there to me in the West Indies. South Africa, Kisa Rabada, actually, he's a very, very good bowler. You can't really forget about him.
I think Pakistan have a lot of good bowlers, right? I mean,
Pakistan,
Afridi,
not bad.
how is he?
I think he's a good bowler. Very left armour. He's very good with the new ball in all formats again. Naseem Shah, I think, could be up there in a few years' time as well. He's very, very skillful and really quick. So I think maybe in a couple of years' time, if he can stay fit and keep going and keep improving, he might be in there. Who else have we got? Bangladesh, Shakib, I guess. He's kind of been off the boil a little bit for the last few years.
Yeah, quite a bit.
But yeah, so I'd say top 5 then. Mitchell Stark, Jasper.
I think Mustafizur Rahman as well, because a lot of people are actually putting his money on him.
Kind of been struggling for the last few years. I think he's just turned 30. And yeah, maybe on the way out as well. But yeah, I think Stark, Cummins, Bumrah, Rabada, and Jofra, I think would be my top 5. And they're all seamers, which is interesting. I mean, don't know what that means about it. I think possibly the fact that spin is a very, very different skill to have in each format. I mean, you see a lot of wrist spinners excel in T20, whereas it's mainly finger spinners in the red ball stuff. So I guess maybe that's what you kind of take from it. But yeah, I think those 5 seamers in particular are probably the best in the world.
And top 5 batters.
Top 5 batters.
Because you want to make a team. I'll ask you about top 5 bowlers, top 5 batters, and then we have also 1 wicket keeper, and that is going to be difficult for you.
Wicket keeper, I think. If you're going out and out Gloveman, it's got to be Ben Stokes for me. I think he's in there for me. I want my best Gloveman. Ben Stokes will be the wicket keeper. I'll let you know now. Batting wise, all format again makes it tough. All format, I'm gonna go. You have to have probably Rohit Sharma at the moment. I think he's very that ODI World Cup. He really showed his class. I thought. Virat Kohli. I think in there.
I'll tell you one thing. We are talking about the all format player, right? Rohit Sharma is an incredible player. But I remember I was listening to Joyfree Boycott actually, and he said that a lot of times what happen, you are trying to make a lot of friends, but eventually you're playing a cameo rather than making a lot of friends, which can help you when it comes to 50 over World Cup or 20 over World Cup or anywhere like 50 over the white ball format. But when it comes to Test cricket, it is going to be harsh because you're not going to play every single ball out of the park. And if you're not playing that, but you're already in that zone that you want to hit every single ball, and suddenly you are actually doing something opposite to your area, opposite to your defense, opposite to your style, this is going to affect you, right? And this all happened. Let's just check 2 games that happened in the South Africa as well. He struggled when it comes to Test matches. So I don't know. I don't think I'm going to put Rohit Sharma is on my park right now, because Rohit Sharma, wonderful white ball player, but Test matches is something which, yeah. What do you think about him?
I mean, I think he's a great red ball player. I mean, it's hard to see, but I think the last few years he's been really, really impressive. I mean, if you're going off really recent form, Jaiswal, I guess, as an all format player is not a bad option. Otherwise, I think, again, similar with the bowling as we talked about, sort of T20 and Test is sort of so different at the moment. There aren't a huge number of players who are necessarily playing internationally for all 3 formats.
Sure.
Australia, I guess, is where it's maybe similar, but I don't necessarily know how good their T20 side is. They obviously won the World Cup a couple of years ago with not a bad side. Mitch Marsh, maybe on recent form, you could argue. Or Travis Head, actually. Travis Head, 100% is going in there. From what he's been the last 2 years, he's been fantastic. Test in particular, which I didn't really think he would be, but I think he's been brilliant, and you probably have to get him in there. I'm sure I'm missing out on some players here, but who else have you got? So what? Kohli, Sharma, and Travis Head at the moment. Pakistan, Babar Azam, I guess, or Rizwan. Probably Babar Azam over Rizwan. I'm not the biggest T20 fan.
I'll pick Rizwan over Babar Azam when it comes to Rizwan. Rizwan is going to be in my team because look, he's consistent. You want consistency. Either you can give a aggressive approach or you want consistent approach, right? I think I'll go with a consistent performance rather than the aggressive approach, I would say. So I think
Babar Azam and Mohammad Rizwan are equally. I think they're almost the same player in a lot of ways. Rizwan's arguably a bit more aggressive. I just think that test-wise, Babar Azam is definitely the better test player than Rizwan. And I think if you go in all format, that's arguably more useful than the marginal gain you might have from Rizwan in the white ball stuff. I think so. Therefore, I go for Babar Azam. New Zealand-wise, I'm trying to think, who do they have that plays all formats? I'm definitely missing people. Daryl Mitchell, I guess, yet again over the last 3 years, has been very, very good. But Quinton de Kock, you can't forget about. I don't know if you count him as an all-format player, considering he's retired from all formats now. I think maybe T20 still going, but when he was on form, when he was in his prime, very hard to beat him, I'd say.
Fascinating. And whom you're going to choose as a captain? Who is going to captain this side which you made right now?
I guess it's going to be Rohit Sharma. Probably he's the only one who's captaining any of the or Pat Cummins you could go for, but probably Rohit Sharma. I'd say would be my choice. I think Rohit Sharma he does a decent job for India. So yeah.
Yeah, let's see. I hope that this team, some around the corner, will play and won the World Cup or any tournament, man. Yeah. So
Maybe,
thank you, Toby. Thank you so much for coming and joining this conversation. And I'm really glad that you took time and came here. So
no, I really enjoyed it, man. I thought it was a very good podcast. Had a good time on it.
And I'm sure I'm all the best for your podcast as well. And all the things that you're doing right now. And obviously, a World Cup is coming. A lot to do, lot to cover. So all the best to you and England team, man. Cheers.
Perfect. Cheers, mate. Thanks so much.